Hey dudes and chicks, I need their flows, tonic body. Welcome back for time. My name is Katie. Today, I'm going to be ranking all my Notoriously Morbid palettes. I actually don't have a couple of them. I'm sure that I don't have the Spring Witch. And the reason why is because the formula of that particular palette didn't actually work the way that I needed it to. It was all fluorescent colors and they looked really pretty on, but they didn't blend the way that I needed to. And so I kind of have my collection consolidated right now. And so I brought a box of all my palettes and I just left the things in there that I didn't actually want like on hand that I may or may not want to use. And so I don't have that in here, but I'm pretty sure that's the only Notoriously Morbid palette that I left in the box. So if you guys are interested in seeing how all my Notoriously Morbid palettes rank, and I actually have several, so you guys know this. Yeah, so if you guys are interested in seeing what Notoriously Morbid palettes I think are the best and which ones I think are the less best, then hang out. I actually have 3 palettes in these piles that I haven't used yet, but I know that they're going to perform just the same, so I judge them based on their color story and not on their performance because I know they're going to perform well. The last on the list is the It's Fall, Y'all, and I haven't used this yet. I got it in PR like a couple weeks back, obviously, like before Halloween, and the color story looks like this, and it's all right. You guys know it's like all neutrals. This is actually the most cohesive matte color story of any Notoriously Morbid palette, like maybe not ever, but there's a couple that I have in my collection that are pretty cohesive, but I'm just saying like this is a super cohesive color story. And I want to use this color with this color. So I'm sure that these shimmers are going to shock the fuck out of me and I'm going to have to do a brown look. So I am going to do it. I just haven't done it yet. Next up is the Rusted Essence Volume 3. The color story looks like this. And honestly, the look I did with this was Beetlejuice as fuck. I posted a reel and a TikTok with it on. I haven't posted the pics yet, I don't think, but the look turned out great. It's just not kind of my color story. Like, I love this green, I love this purple, but this green right here is like whatever. So that's the only reason why, is because it's kind of a, you know, not really my style. The Path of the Light side, the shimmers in this are fucking phenomenal, but I don't really care for this matte color story. A lot of times a palette, the way that I judge it is literally based on the matte color story. Like if the matte color story like speaks to me, then shimmers are like, I mean, the shimmers are phenomenal. The reason why this palette is here is because there is no Notoriously Morbid shimmer that doesn't look like so amazing on the eyes. So like I like to have them all, and they have so many 9-pan palettes, which you guys know 9-pan palettes aren't necessarily like, I don't have an affinity for 9-pan palettes, and I've considered several times like taking all of my Notoriously Morbid shadows and putting them in a single shadow palette, but I just don't have the heart to like pull them all apart because they're cool. You know what I mean? The covers are cool. They create their own art. They're all hand drawn. They put a lot of time into it, so it's like I just leave them the way that they are. And I feel like I would probably get more use out of them if I had them all together, because the Notoriously Morbid mattes are like one of my favorite matte formulas, period. So next is the Spirit of Sleepy Hollow. The only reason why this is so low is because it's oranges. I like orange. I like orange looks. It's just not my favorite. And honestly, these shimmers in this palette are so fucking cool because they're an orange to green shift, but they're not like that like typical orange to green shift. They're like a bright orange. They're like this orange, like, you know, like a bright orange to like a bright lime green orange, like, or bright lime green. Well, that's actually what they are, bright lime green orange. So I don't know, they were surprising because I often have a hard time with palettes that have green and orange in the same palette because you can't really mix them together, but Notoriously Morbid did it. Next is the Bog Witch, and I love this palette. So honestly, the only reason why it's low on the list is because it's a green palette, but it's probably, maybe my favorite green palette, honestly. And it has these two colors right here, which are a green to pink shift in different ways. And this one has like pink sparklies like Pete's Dragon. So this palette is so great. The other thing about it is this shadow in it is like my favorite. It's like mushroom or something. It's like fungal fawn, and it had so much kick up, and I've used this palette so many times that I've actually hit pan. I never hit fucking pan. That's the other thing, is I kind of like am savoring that matte shadow because it's like I don't want it to go away, right? Next is the Queen of Hearts, and I love all the shadows in this. The shimmers are fucking badass. They have this weird like chunky formula in here that is like, looks super cool on the eyes, and all the shifts are beautiful. The color story is amazing. The only reason why I didn't really care for it is because it has a white matte, which it looked amazing. It fit the theme. As I said in my last video where I did the Underland palette, like you can't have an Alice in Wonderland palette without having a white. So it's like, I mean, honestly, like it was a great white, and that look I did with the blue, like blending the white with the blue, looked amazing. It's just not my favorite color story of the mattes, right? Coming in next at number blah, blah, blah. I have no idea. So this is number 15, and this is the Mothman palette. This palette has so many weird shifty shades, and this color right here is actually one of my favorite Notoriously Morbid colors, and this color blent out with this like mustard seed yellow. I actually have a dress that matches that like perfectly, and so I love this palette. It's just like you know, it's a little more like more neutrally shades, I feel like, a lot like greens and like darks and this dark shade. But honestly, I don't really know. I love this fucking palette. The shifts are amazing, and every time I use one of the shimmers in this palette, I'm like, what the fuck? I never even knew. This palette has like some really good like, and this color right here, it's like 57 Chevy. Oh, MILF. Mothman I'd like to find is like, I don't know, it's like weird, but I love all these palettes. Otherwise I wouldn't even have them with me. So it doesn't really matter. I'm actually swatching this just so it doesn't go to waste. God, that color is so cool. You know, I don't want to backpedal. Like I ranked them the way that I ranked them because like that's how I feel about them. But when I open them and I'm showing them to you guys, I'm like, oh, I don't know why I put that down there. The only reason why I put that down there is because of what I have up here. You know what I'm saying? Like, but I don't have any palettes here that I don't like really at all. This is the Pretty Poison palette. Now, the shimmers in this are like sort of weird. They don't swatch at all, but like once they go on the eyes, they're fucking like crazy good. The lipsticks that came with this particular collection are like some of my favorite lipsticks that I've ever had, that I still ever have. I've replaced a couple of them. They're like so good. And this is an all shimmer palette. The shifty shades in this are fucking cool, dude. But I don't want to swatch them because they swatch like shit. So I love this palette. It's an all shimmer palette. So that's like another thing, is like all shimmer palettes are cool. They'll just never be one of my favorites because there's no mattes. Is that actually true? I'm pretty sure that's true. I'm pretty sure that a palette has to have mattes in it for it to be my favorite. This is the Rusted Essence Volume 2, and I don't have the Rusted Essence Volume 1. I'm not sure how I missed that, but I fucking love this color story. This is my kind of green right here. Like, I love like bright fluorescent lime green, and this color right here is like that, like, it's kind of pink, kind of orange, kind of red. And then it's got these green and purple shimmers. Now with green and purple shimmers, like I'm all about it. Dude, I love that fucking Hulk Beetlejuice life. Like that's my shit right there. So that one ranked a little bit higher just because it's not quite as fall-y maybe. This is the Unearthly Aura palette, and every single color in this is fucking bomb. I don't know if you guys remember, but I did an all shimmer. I'm pretty sure I did an all shimmer. Or wait, did I actually use the Blend Bunny palette with this one? I'm not sure. I don't remember. I think I did an all shimmer look with this though, and all these colors are fucking stupendous. What was the one that was really the show stealer for me? I think it was this light green right here. God, that fucking thing was so pretty. And I love these like more satiny shadows from Notoriously Morbid, not because they're my favorite shimmer, but because they're really cool to use like as your inner corner matte, because they're like half and half, right? So they still draw in light to the inner corner, but they give a little shine. I fucking am all about that shiny life. Like, I love shimmer, I love glow, I love all that shit. So anyway, I feel like that was like the big like treasure for me, was that like light green. But this color right here, fucking cool. Every single one of these colors like are beautiful, shifty, amazing. Next, coming in at what is Night of the Vivid Dead. I love this color story as well. And honestly, I feel like this color story, because this actually is pretty, this color story is like fantastic, but there was no depth in it. So like, I feel like these two palettes together would make like an amazing couple. I don't want to drop them because Notoriously Morbid shadows are kind of sensitive. I feel like these two palettes would go together swimmingly, just famously. So anyways, you guys know I love this color story. It's fantastic. There's just no deepening shades, so that's the only reason why it would have went higher. And this black with the green glitter, it's not like I don't know, it's like hard to explain. It is a black matte with glitter, like shimmer in it, but the shimmer's more substantial, and so it's like flakes. It's that flaky formula that they have, so it's not like glitter. You can't tell that it's glitter. It just has these like flakes that look more like confetti than glitter, and it actually adheres. So if you're going for that black as a matte, it's not gonna work because the shimmer is actually gonna stay there. The next is the Season of the Witch Winter. This is probably my favorite of their witch series. You guys know I love this shit. These colors together are so fucking beautiful. The look I did with this palette is fucking bomb. I pretty much have videos on every single one of these palettes too, except it's Fall Y'all and two others that I have up here. So anyways, if you guys are interested in seeing it, it's under the Notoriously Morbid playlist. And you guys know this color story. The only thing I could probably do without is this green, but honestly, I have a feeling this green is fucking surprising. The other thing is my preference isn't like dark shimmers, and I don't know why I feel drawn to use dark shimmers. When I use palettes that have dark shimmers, I'm prone to use them, and I don't feel like they look as good. I like to use them in the back, but quite frankly, I just don't think that they look as good as like a brighter shimmer. I'm not sure if that's true. They just look more sultry, and that's not really ever what I'm going for. I'm always going for like fun, exciting, like bright, young, youthful, vivacious, crazy. You know what I mean? I'm never really going for that like sultry, dark, gothy, smoky. That's not really me. I do it all the time, but it's just not my favorite. So this is the Path of the Dark Side, and I'm pretty sure... No, this was the second palette that I ever got by these guys, and I just fell in love. This red is probably my favorite red in any palette ever, period. It is so cool, and quite frankly, this color right here, it looks light. It's not. It's dark. And so this was the one that had the black. I feel like this was like the original. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Davina had one. I'm not sure, but I feel like the first black to red shifter I saw was this color right here. And it is fucking shocking. It's like a fucking breathtaking shadow. And then this is the first palette that I ever got, and I actually just had to repress one of the shadows just to do this video. And so the shimmers in this, they're not shimmers. They're like, I don't know how to explain them. They're like shimmery, but they're like mattes that are shimmery. And they're super delicate, and this is like my first Notoriously Morbid palette, and the shimmers in this are so unusual, and like I've said this 1,000 times, when I got this palette, I take really good care of this palette because I feel like it's such a treasure. And when I got this palette, I knew that Notoriously Morbid had something super special that nobody else had, and so it's been like a long journey that I've had with them since I got this palette. But I just knew the minute that I opened this palette and the minute that I used those weird fucking shiny mattes, that like they had like something special, and that they've got a formula that nobody else has. Nobody else has a formula like Notoriously Morbid's. Not their matte formula, not their shimmer formulas. They do a ton of different textures, a ton of different kinds of sheens and shines, and grits and fucking chunks and all kinds of shit. Like, nobody has anything like Notoriously Morbid. And so that's the thing, is like, you either love them or you hate them. But for me, like, I just like something that's like out of the ordinary, and people that are doing something different than what everybody else is doing. So this is the Weird Vibes palette, and I fucking love this color story. I love the fucking shimmers in it. I love the fucking skull. I love everything about this palette. I just haven't had a chance to use it yet. And I did pay for this with my own money, and I've paid for several of these with my own money. I guess I should have said which ones I paid for and which ones I've gotten in PR. Maybe I've gotten a lot of these in PR. Night of the Dead, Unearthly Aura, Pretty Poison. The Mothman I paid for myself. The Queen of Hearts I got in PR, Bog Witch PR, Sleepy Hollow. Path of the Light Side I got from a friend. She bought it for me. Oh, you know what else I don't have up there is Blood and Daffodils. Blood and Daffodils is also in the box. So those are the two that I don't have, is the Spring Witch and the Blood and Daffodils, and I didn't even keep those with me just because they're just not my color story. Volume 3, I didn't pay for that. So all these ones except for the Mothman and the Path of the Light Side I got in PR. The Absinthe and Lace I paid for myself. The Path of the Dark Side I paid for myself. The Winter Witch I got. This I paid for myself. And it's just so fucking cute. And I love this color story. I think the reason why I haven't worn it yet is because it's kind of wintry to me. And it's got an orange with a purple. And so you guys know how I struggle with that shit. Like, how am I going to put those two motherfuckers together? So I'm going to do it. Like, I've got it in my little drawer of palettes that I haven't used yet, along with the It's Fall, y'all, and I'm going to pull something great out of it. Everything about this palette is so cute and perfect, and the color story is amazing. So, and honestly, it probably would have ranked higher had I used it. It probably would have been, like, on top. The next one is the Web Weaver palette, and honestly, I feel like the Weird Vibes would be above this one, except I haven't used it yet. And this I have used, and these fucking kinds of purples are like some of my favorite shit. It does have a white in it, which is like, you know, whatever, but this whole thing is like my jam. And I went and got all of my palettes. I went and dug that big ass box out of the very bottom of my storage shed just to get this palette right here, which is the Madame Violet palette, and the color story looks like this, and so it's on top of that one. It's not my topsies, but this might actually be my favorite. It might actually be my like go-to palette, where like if I was just looking for something to do a go-to look with, I would totally grab this. These other ones that I have above it are a little bit overwhelming and kind of mysterious to me. This is a go-to palette for me, and the only reason why I dug that whole fucking box out of storage is so that I could get this palette to use with this palette. So I mean, I love this fucking palette. It's like my jam. They sent it to me in PR before they had the stickers, so I never got the sticker, but boo. Notoriously Morbid, if you guys see this video, will you please send me the sticker for this palette? I would really like it. So anyways, they sent me an email. They were like, we just sent you a palette. We don't have the stickers yet, but this palette is your jam. It is your jam. You're going to rock it. So we're sending it to you now. And I was like, right on. And when I opened it, I was like, fuck yeah, it is my jam. It's my jam. Okay, here is one other palette that I haven't used yet. It's the Boohoo palette, and I actually did pay for this with my own money. Notoriously Morbid sent me an email asking me if I wanted this in PR a couple years ago, however the fuck long it was ago that it came out, and my Gmail wasn't syncing. And so I never got the email, so I never got the palette. And I've been crying the fuck around about it for years, however long it's been, a year and a half, 2 years, something like that. I've been fucking crying, boo-hooing about not getting this collection since it came out. And so I always ask them, hey, will you relaunch the Boohoo palette? And recently I was like, hey, you guys, and I said all these things, and I was like, and while I have you here, I'm going to just send in a request to relaunch the Boohoo palette. And they finally fucking did it. Now, I'm not saying that I had any influence on that, but I'm not saying I didn't either. So anyways, they relaunched it, and I did pay for this with my own money, and I haven't used it yet, but I fucking love it. I'm not disappointed. It is not any less cool to me than it was all that time ago when they fucking launched it. The color story is beautiful. The shimmers are beautiful. I'm going to use it here pretty quick. So now I feel like, honestly, these next two, the only reason why they're above this one is because I haven't used it yet. But the next one is kind of a weird one, and this is the Love Fool palette. And it's in a magnetic palette because I actually sent them an email that was like, hey, this is actually the only palette that I've ever done this with. I was like, hey, are you guys going to send me that palette in PR? Because if you're not, I just want to know if I need to get it. And it's the one that has the clown on the front. I also wish that I had the cover for this one because this was the cutest fucking cover. Anyway, so the person that I was working with that did the PR, she was like, we didn't send this to you in PR, but we can. We don't have the palettes yet, but we can totally send you the single shadows. And I was like, fuck, I'll take it. And so this is the Love Fool palette. I love this palette. I love the color story. I'm pretty sure this one came broken and I repressed it, and it's actually my favorite color in the whole palette. But I just like go easy on it. You can see that color's like all over the inside, but I just like take it. I just be like super careful because I fucking love this palette. And this also has those shades, but it has a deepening shade. And so this felt really different for me. And the look I created with this, we actually did a giveaway, and the look I created with this was like sort of true to what I would do if I was entering in the giveaway. And so I actually think I did it so that I could take pictures that would be like appropriate for them to like post as a giveaway post picture. And so the look I created with it was fucking adorable. And so yeah, I love the Love Fool color story. It's like so great. And this is Summertime Sadness. Actually, you know, I was just looking in I think it was the Rusted Essence Volume 2. I half wonder if this isn't like the same or very similar. I don't want to, because they're both like so fucking, I just noticed that I don't think it is. No, it's not. But see, they're not even, I mean, they're not even close. That's the thing about Notoriously Morbid. When I'm looking at them in the pan, they look like they're very similar, but they're not even close. And so it's like, the shifts are like so hard to see. Like a lot of palettes that you see these days are like, the shifts are so blatantly obvious in the pan, but that's not true with Notoriously Morbid shadows. And it's because they're a little bit more, they're not as shiny. So they don't draw in the light. So the shifts are like a little more sneaky because they don't attract as much light. So anyways, now this is the final two. This is palette number 2, and it's a Summertime Sadness palette. Also, the themes of these palettes as we're like going up, you know, it's like Season of the Witch is my style. Night of the Vivid Deads is my style. But like Boo-hoo, this is like, you guys don't know how much of a crybaby I am. Shit gets hard. So it's like the themes were like, I don't know, the themes were like spot on. I fucking love this. So the Summertime Sadness, I love this color story. It's super mermaidy. It's like totally like summer. It's just great. And even the orange shifts are super cool, and they just match. They're kind of like, they match like the corally theme rather than like a straight up like fall orange, like pumpkin orange. Okay, and my favorite Notoriously Morbid palette of all time. If you guys have been watching me for a long time, a lot of you guys who know me really well, you might already fucking guess this one, but I bet you a lot of you guessed that my favorite palette was the Madame Violet, and it's not. It's the Rose from the Dead palette. And this was the Valentine's Day launch like 2 or 3 years ago. And the lipsticks that came with this were fucking bomb. The color story, I actually had my apartment kind of based on this sort of color story. Like when we painted my apartment, I kind of used this as like a rough, like this was the color of my bathroom. This was the color of my kitchen. You know what I mean? And it was a little more gray than that, but like this is my favorite Notoriously Morbid palette of all time. The theme, the fact that it came out on Valentine's Day and it was like Rose from the Dead, everything about this was like, it got me fucking soaked. So this is my number 1 favorite Notoriously Morbid palette of all time. So good. And it was based pretty much on like the color stories of the mattes. Like really it doesn't have anything to do with, and also I feel like there's a use for every single one of these colors, and That's why I keep them all around, so that if I ever, on the off chance, need one single fucking green matte to do a look, like in the highly unlikely event that I would need a single fucking green matte shadow with a green and pink shifter, then I have all my Notoriously Morbid mattes with me, and the only ones that I don't have is the Spring Witch and Blood and Daffodils. And honestly, I'm not even sure if I've used Blood and Daffodils, but I have used the Spring Witch, and the colors are awesome. They look great. I just couldn't, I feel like I couldn't get the purple to blend with the blue the way that I normally would be able to, and it's because of the nature of, they like have a different formula because they were like neons. And also the Night of the Vivid Deads, the neons, like they blended fine. And also like in, what was the other one that had those? Oh, in the Loveful palette, they blended fine. So clearly they had like maybe done something differently or whatever. I just didn't have any problems. And the ones in the Spring Witch palette were kind of a little, they had like that waxy finish where the more I blent them, the more like they kind of like waxed. And I couldn't get them to blend. When they came together, they actually made like a darker, it looked like darker where the two colors came together, and I couldn't get it to do what I needed it to. So anyways, that's all there is. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and hit the notification bell because you can't wait to see what happens next. Hit the like button if you like this look, or if you just like my sparkling personality and my boyish charm. And hang out with me in the comments because I fucking love it. If you got like halfway through this video and you're like, oh my god, she's so pretty until she opens her big fucking mouth, then go check me out on Instagram. I don't talk as much on Instagram. Thank you guys so much for watching. You could have been anywhere, but you're here wasting your time with me, and I totally appreciate you. Later. Slayer.